Hello, welcome to this video. So I want to share a short story that looks simple but actually carries many real issues about living in multicultural world. But before that, let's imagine this. You're outside with your friends, you're talking, laughing, talking freely, then suddenly your mom calls you. She's speaking her accent, maybe in different language, and without thinking, you lower your voice, you answer fast. You don't want your friends to hear, not because your mom is wrong but because it feels awkward. And this feeling, this choice, and this gap are exactly what happens in The Pepper Menagerie by Ken Liu. This story is not about magic pepper animals. It's about a child who slowly trades his culture and language for the feeling of being accepted. So now, let me walk you into the story. The Pepper Menagerie is about a boy named Jack who lived in America with his American father and his Chinese mother. When Jack is a child, his mom makes magical pepper animals for him. They are alive and they are made with love. As Jack grows up, he becomes embraced by his mother's language and culture. He wants to be more American, so he slowly pushes her away. He stops speaking Chinese and hides the pepper animals. After his mother's die, Jack finds a letter hidden inside one of the pepper animals. From that letter, he finally understands her life, her pain, and her love. But he understands it's too late. The story feels very real because the writer understands this life deeply. Ken Liu is a Chinese American writer who grew up between cultures and languages. That's why his stories often talk about immigrant families, language loss, and identity conflict. This story reflects real immigrant experiences, especially how language and culture can slowly disappear between generations. Because of that, the story clearly shows many multicultural issues. Let's look at them. The first and the most visible issue is the language barrier. Jack's mother only speaks Chinese, while Jack wants to speak only English. For the mother, Chinese is the language of love, memory, and emotional connection. However, for Jack, English becomes the language of acceptance and survival in society. The situation shows linguistic exclusivity, where only one language is treated as valuable and acceptable. English becomes the normal language while Chinese is excluded and seen as backward or embracing. So this issue relates to Pierre Bourdieu's theory of language and symbolic power 1991. Bourdieu explains that language carries power and dominant languages give social advantages. In the story, English functions as a symbolic capital, while Chinese has little social value, causing exclusion. The second issue is cultural identity crisis, mainly experienced by Jack. As a child of mixed cultural background, Jack is not fully Chinese and not fully American. Instead of embracing both identities, he feels pressures to choose one. Because American culture is dominant, Jack decides to reject his Chinese identity. This reflects cultural exclusivity, where only one cultural identity is considered acceptable. Jack believes that to be accepted, he must exclude part of himself. This issue connects to Stuart Hall's theory of cultural identity 1990. Hall states that identity is not fixed but formed through social and cultural processes. Jack's identity is shaped by society that values American culture over immigrant cultures, pushing him to deny his roots. Another important issue is assimilation pressure. Jack feels the need to behave, speak, and live like real Americans. He asks his mother to cook American food, speak English, and stop behaving differently. This is an example of social exclusivity, where society accepts individuals only if they conform to dominant norms. Those who do not assimilate are treated as outsiders. Jack learns that difference leads to rejection, so he forced himself and his mother to change. This issue is explained by Milton Garden's assimilation theory, 1964. Garden argues that immigrants are often expected to abandon their original culture to fully join the dominant society. Jack's behavior clearly reflects this process of forced assimilation. The fourth issue is cultural shame, which later becomes internalized racism. Jack feels ashamed of his mother's accent, her appearance, Chinese food, and traditional habits. He even questions his own physical features and asks if he has a chin face. This is a form of psychological exclusivity where individuals internalize the dominant culture's negative views about their own group. Jack excludes his own identity mentally and emotionally, even without direct discrimination. This issue relates to Franz Fanon's concept of internalized operations 1952. Fanon explains how marginalized people may assert the values and judgments of the dominant group and turn them against themselves. Jack's shame is a clear example of this process. The fifth issue is the generational gap between Jack and his mother. Jack adapts quickly to American culture, while his mother adapts slowly. They grew up in different cultural worlds with different languages, values, and ways of expressing love. This creates emotional exclusivity. Jack excludes his mother emotionally by rejecting her language and cultural expressions of love. This issue can be explained using John Barry's acculturation theory 1997. Barry explains that immigrants and their children may choose different acculturation strategies. Jack chooses assimilation while his mother tries integration, leading to emotional distance and conflict. So, after we look at all the issues, now we move to the conclusion. The paper Menagerie shows that multicultural life is not always happy or colorful, only distance that grows quietly between a mother and her child. After learning from this story, there are a few lessons we can take. First, language is more than communication. It carries emotion, memory, and love. When we reject a language, we may also reject the person behind it. Second, multicultural identity is not about choosing one side. It is about learning how to live with more than one culture. And lastly, this story teaches us that understanding often comes too late. So maybe we should listen earlier, be more patient, and appreciate where we come from before it disappears. So maybe that's it from me. Bye bye!